Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. There's still a few folks coming in. My name is Tom DiVittorio, and I'm a director in a professional services organization for Salesforce. I'm responsible for the platform specialty within our ProServe organization, and I've had the opportunity to work on some of our larger, more complicated implementations, as well as developed on the platform. I've developed solutions. If you guys have seen the Twitter integration, I helped pioneer that for the product organization as well. And I'm here. I'm going to talk today to you folks about developing enterprise solutions in the cloud. Just before I get started, how many folks in the audience have built at least one application that's non-CRM related on the platform? So almost most folks. Okay. How many folks would say that Force.com is an approved platform that you can build any application that you want? Okay. So that's quite a few less. So I've spent a lot of time in the last couple of months meeting with customers and trying to get them comfortable with Force.com as a new platform. And the purpose of this presentation is to kind of walk through what are the things that you as an organization need to develop a capability around so that your organization, so that Force.com can be an approved platform within your organization. What kind of things are a good fit? What kind of things are a bad fit? And then I have Aaron Bagchi here from Seagate, who is one of our, an old customer of ours, who basically their organization is using the platform for almost everything at this point. And Aaron is going to talk about their experiences and how they've grown and the things that they have in place. So I've got the safe harbor slide, which all of you have memorized at this point, which I don't think I need to talk about. Don't make any buying decisions based upon what you're about to see. Okay, let's talk about that. So a new category emerges. You guys are hopefully now considering Force.com as a platform that you would use to develop any application. You've seen the innovation we have. The platform has a number of application services. You've heard the marketing around 5 times faster, half the cost. These are very real statistics, and it needs the category is probably emerging within your organization. But as you can see, I can, as I've met with some of these folks, especially some enterprise architects, it's there's a lot of challenges that you face. You want to understand will it work? How much is this really going to cost? Will it be well received? And how do I make sure that people are using it properly, right? Because this, like any other platform, can be misused, and there's failures that can be associated with that. So how do you make sure that everybody's using it the appropriate way? So I asked the question earlier about who's done, who's built at least one app. What we find is that most companies start with sort of a POC, departmental pilot, and that's where probably most of you in this room, or you hope to get to. You want to find a good proof of concept app that demonstrates the total cost of ownership savings, the ROI that you can get. You may have done you may be in the midst of a departmental pilot, but now, what the purpose of this is really to talk about when you get to that point when you want to develop standards and you want to have everybody standardized within your company. So what capabilities do you need to develop? I see really two that come to mind as you want to open up the floodgates within your organization for this platform. You want to be able to evaluate applications and use cases quickly, so you want to be able to understand, is this a good fit? And you want to develop standards within your organization around architecture, things like single sign-on, and I'll go through the things that you're responsible for. And how's that different for cloud, right? It's different than Java and .NET. There's a whole series of things that we handle for you, but there still leaves you an area of focus that you need to develop a set of standards around so that you make sure everybody, again, is using and getting the most out of the app. So when you evaluate applications and use cases, there's really 3 areas that you probably focus on. One, Technical fit, will it work, right? Are you trying to put a square peg through a round hole? 2, complexity. How much is it going to cost? So you need a measuring stick in terms of, if I could look at this app and I could ask 20 questions, could I get to some level of determining complexity and then determine whether it's a good, this is something that I should move forward with? And then lastly, risk and reward. So how many folks are actually going to be using this? What level of exposure do I have if I, put this application in the cloud? And then what reward? How, if it's replacing an existing app, what's the current spend that you have with that, or what's the current user perception of that app? Because again, these 3 factors looked in conjunction can kind of help you develop a roadmap in terms of what you should be looking at, and then what you should be looking at first, second, third, fourth. So how do you evaluate? What are the set of characteristics you can look against? So this is we call the red dot slide. Essentially, this started out like 3 years ago. This is probably a marketing slide maybe some of you have seen before. It was a much smaller picture. This dot is becoming more of a blob and taking up more and more areas as we keep innovating on the platform. But typically, you can look at things across 2 dimensions. Who's this for? Who's going to be using this? Customers, enterprise, departments, or groups. And then what type of app is it? Is it an app that's primarily content focused, meaning unstructured data, data process, or transaction level, really heavy transaction type solutions? And as you can see, we really kind of fit within that whole data process space very well. If you look at this slide actually probably needs to be updated based on the announcement. On the left, that was typically where we necessarily wouldn't play, which would be around collaboration, which you guys recently we announced Chatter, so that would be an area that we're now really expanding into. As well as on the right there, so things that wouldn't necessarily fit would be things that are heavy, long-running transactions, number crunching type things, things that are necessarily leveraging non-relational data, applications that have few or no end users and require heavy data mining or looking across different applications, sort of like an enterprise search engine, if you will. Not necessarily something that, at least right now, again, this dot or blob evolves over time, are things that we might raise a flag in your mind. Things that are a good fit, again, really anything that requires relational data, is business process driven, meaning it requires data-driven workflows, approval processes. These are all the application services that you probably use with CRM. Most of you are using, if you're a CRM user, or if you've built applications on the platform, these are the application services that you get with Salesforce. So again, those are things that you would consider. Another one that's not on this slide is potentially regulatory concerns that you may have. If there's certain privacy issues, those are things that may be a flag in terms of assessing whether it's a good fit. So what are the best, as you're going through this, those are just some of the characteristics that we define. Aaron's going to talk, when he gets up here, he's going to talk about a model that they use to evaluate apps and what the sweet spot is for them. Because the sweet spot for every organization can be different. It is those sort of innate technical characteristics that I described, but it's also about what, within your organization, where does it make sense? So Aaron, I think he's going to talk a little bit about how they've used Force.com as really an enabler of their sales and marketing platforms, and kind of where, now how they're expanding, beyond that. So what do you want to do? You want to develop a repeatable model around assessing applications. And like I said, you really want to look across a couple of dimensions, technical fit, complexity, and the risk and reward. You want to score, come up with a scoring model. Again, it can be very quantitative. I'm going to show an application in a few minutes that we've developed, or we're in the process of developing on our platform, that you can use to enter in a bunch of characteristics. and it'll give you some level of understanding of how complicated it's going to be, whether it's a good pilot candidate versus a high-value candidate. Basically, so you can set up a quadrant like you're seeing here to determine, what you may want to do first, second, third, fourth. So, the idea is that you would create, your own quadrants, if you will, that determine what you would choose for a pilot application. So typically, pilot applications, if you haven't gotten started yet, you should look for things that are generally of lower complexity that you can use to develop, that you can use to show good TCO in terms of how quickly you can turn around applications on the platform, and where there's a need, right? You're solving a big pain point within your organization. So the current solution is not something that your users are happy with, or that is has a very high TCO associated with it. We found that companies that do that tend to find better candidates and can help kind of prove out the model better. Things that would be of limited value or apps that are not necessarily a good technical fit, or for which another low-cost alternative already exists. So if you have something in-house that, again, it's about combining all the different factors within your organization, about technical fit, about how much cost it is already, whether the users are happy, and that and you can set this up according to how what makes sense to your organization. This is just a model that we use as part of our professional services. We're doing app rationalization for our customers. So strategic, just to kind of close as strategic candidates would be ones that are of greater complexity, and the current application is kind of okay to poor. So it's an application that may not be right in the sweet spot, may require some heavy investment in time in terms of months instead of weeks. That would be more of a strategic candidate, maybe something that you want to do as you develop better skills internally. And clearly you want to pick the easier stuff until your organization is ready to handle some of the more complex stuff. So again, I described an application that we've built on the service, and this is a great way to kind of eat your own dog food, or drink your own champagne. It's a series of questions that you can use to evaluate applications, and our goal is to maybe make this an open source application that's available on our App Exchange. If you're interested, after I show it, if you're interested, definitely contact me. I'll make sure my contact information is available. This is a tool that that we're going to use to as part of our app rationalizations that we do for customers and evaluating portfolios of applications. Before I demo the app, I just wanted to kind of go through there's really two areas that we are seeing this app rationalization happen. One is based upon particular capabilities. So maybe you're going to say the Force.com is a good. I want to start using it to evaluate anything that's in my HR portfolio, because we have a bunch of applications. They're all disparate. It's a good vertical for us to pick that we can put it through an app rationalization process. The second is around declining technologies within your organization. So recently we just went through an exercise with one of our large insurance clients where they wanted to get off the Notes platform. So much like the gentleman from Lawson who was up there today, the CIO, if you guys were in the keynote, it's about a declining technology. So you're saying, okay, by 2010, I want to move everything off the Notes platform. I want to modernize it. I want to make it, to his point, Web 2.0 enabled. That's another area or another way that I've seen these rationalizations come about. So I'm going to do a quick demo, and then I'm going to turn it over to Aaron. So what you can see, this is kind of built on our platform. This is live information. We set up a series of dashboards here that basically describe whether some things are a pilot fit, a high-value candidate, or a strategic candidate. So I've imported a series of notes applications, and I can now see what applications would be a good fit, questionable, based upon how I've scored the application. So if I drill in here and I look for a pilot fit, I can see that there's a number of apps that are questionable. So I may want to go in and look specifically at one of them to see why that application is questionable. So we've got basically an application object here. You can enter some basic information about the application, what requirement coverage it has, just some basic high-level information about the app, which again can be used to report on and drive this app rationalization process. But then I can run a number of scenarios. I can come in and say, what would happen if I just replaced this HR PTO type app? So I can drill in. I can see that this app has no flags raised. It's a questionable pilot candidate, but it is a very good high-value candidate as well as a strategic candidate. But if I wanted to drive in a little bit deeper and look at sort of what makes up this score, the candidate score is made up of really complexity, usage, and the current user perception. So I can use this, based on the questions that I've set up in here. There's a number of questions about, how many business processes are involved, whether there's mobile or offline requirements, what the UI requirements are, right? So based on how I answer these questions, it's going to determine, whether this is something that's very complex or not. Just, again, a high-level gauge. And then I can look at things like how many users are going to be using this. What's the change impact to my organization? I can also look at the current functional adequacy. So what do people think about the application? How easy is it to use? The combination of these three essentially computes a score, and now I can determine whether or not this is something I want to do first, second, third. Again, the idea is to just sort of this would be sort of an open source tool. You can obviously evaluate. There's many more criteria you can put into this. But it shows what a good use case it is for our platform to deliver something like this. And again, if anybody's interested in seeing more about this, you can certainly go through it. It's just, instead of using a spreadsheet or anything like that to evaluate different data components, this is a great use case for the app. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Aaron Bagchi. Aaron's going to talk again about what he believes, what they've done with the platform, how they've started and how they've moved and evolved with it. So, Aaron.
How's everyone doing today? My name is Aaron Bagchi, and I work for Seagate Technology. I am an IT manager, and I manage CRM applications at Seagate Technology. And I work in IT. Is this in presentation mode? Okay. So Seagate is the largest disk manufacturing company in the world. We have about 45,000 employees with revenue about $10 billion. And we are been using Salesforce.com since about 2003, 2004 timeframe. And since that time, we pretty much have adopted every module that Salesforce provides today. So we have a pretty big footprint at Seagate. So what I wanted to talk about first is kind of talk about the evolution at Seagate, how we kind of got to where we're at today. All the stuff that Tom was talking about in terms of application rationalization, looking at your application portfolio and determining what's about high value add. To be honest, we didn't do that. We started in 2003. Salesforce there was no concept of it being a platform. We took advantage of the SFA functionality that came out of the box. So we started using marketing campaigns primarily. And then as new features came available, having a more open API, we started using things like S-controls and things like that. So we started expanding our use of the platform to support our reseller program database and integrate with our customer master data sets. And then, so we were using it for several years, and it was pretty much run by a department in sales and marketing. Didn't have a huge footprint, didn't have a lot of visibility within the company. And then back in 2007, we decided, well, the business side, we need to really define a strategy. What does CRM mean to Seagate, and what platform are we going to use to support that strategy? So during that time, we made a decision to go with Salesforce. And so you asked, why did we go with Salesforce? Well, at the time, we knew that our vision was, like most people's vision of CRM, having this single destination where an internal sales rep can get everything about that customer, and for our customers to have greater visibility into the transaction and business processes that are happening within Seagate. But at that time, we didn't necessarily know about some of the new features that would come on board. We didn't, in 2007, we didn't know anything about Visualforce. We didn't know anything about content. We didn't know anything about sites. But what we did know is we needed a platform that was going to be flexible. Being in sales and marketing, the business tends to be more fluid. Things change very dramatically from quarter to quarter. Business cycles change. And we needed a tool that's going to allow us to try new things, and maybe those new things may not work. Maybe they'll support a business initiative for a few months, and maybe it's being thrown away. But we need something that would allow us to build these things and deliver these things quickly so the business can realize that value. So we knew that. We also knew that the platform itself architecturally was sound, multi-tenancy, supporting a web service type integration. We knew that model would be scalable and flexible and allow us to not only integrate with our internal back-end systems, but also integrate with future third-party systems that are also hosted out in the cloud. So as we defined our vision and strategy, we took a kind of more opportunistic approach to the ways that we determined what types of applications go on the platform. One of the struggles within Seagate, working with the business, is they're very bad at looking beyond 3 to 6 months time frame. So what we did know from an IT perspective, we knew we had to do some things to make the platform more scalable. One, we needed to integrate with our single sign-on system, because we knew that we wanted to provide greater visibility for our partners into our back-end transactions. So we needed to integrate with our partner portal, and which is separate than Salesforce today. And so we needed to integrate with that system through single sign-on. And likewise, we knew that we needed to integrate data from our back-end system, so we established ETL and data and web services type integration. So since that time, as new functionality has been delivered through Salesforce, we've been able to take advantage of that and adopt that stuff. So we now serve our sales portal, which we call the Sales Center, through Salesforce.com. So that's our primary portal for our internal sales teams. We have customer service call center for about 250 reps. We're using knowledge base, Instranet. We're using the full suite there. The killer app that we did before, we were using it primarily for CRM. There wasn't really supporting a core business process in terms of revenue-related process. That was really kind of high visibility. We built a B2B application that was partner-facing through the partner portal, supporting our special pricing requests. And once we built that application, that was kind of the application that kind of moved Salesforce from being this kind of niche solution to really looking at it as an enterprise-wide type solution. So this map here kind of gives you an idea of kind of where we're using Salesforce today. The blue circles kind of indicate the endpoints, what we're using today, so you can kind of get a perspective there. And then we have heavy integration with a lot of our internal systems, whether it be our LDAP, identity management systems, transactional system, ERP, et cetera, with data warehouse, et cetera. So how did we get there? We got a lot of help from our, we partnered with a company called Wipro for some consulting. So we had a managed services engagement. We have an onshore and offshore model. So we do most of our project management and business analysis onshore. And then we do most of our development offshore. So what types of applications are a good fit? So as we evolve with the platform, we have taken advantage of these new functionalities and modules and so forth that Salesforce has provided us. But we have to be a little bit realistic in terms of what the platform can really do today. And so today, and this is a Salesforce.com slide. So today, for example, their sweet spot is around relational data, forms-based, workflow-based type processes, Lotus Notes type application. We have a pretty large footprint at Seagate for Lotus Notes applications. So we know that that's the sweet spot today, and we've taken advantage of that sweet spot in a lot of areas. One of the things that we've started to think about more is how do we leverage that platform more broadly across a wider set of different applications. And I think one of the challenges that we face today is knowing where Salesforce is today and knowing where our application stack is and knowing where those applications are in the kind of their life cycle. We have some applications that are becoming end of life. So we have to be realistic in terms of what is a really good use of Salesforce and what's not. So kind of give you an example. Today we don't, and I think Salesforce, at least, and this changes every time we come to Dreamforce. There's always new things, and that's. But today we don't look at Salesforce as being a heavily transactional type system. Large amounts of data, heavy type of processing type functionality. We don't look at Salesforce today as having a robust capability in that area. But we have, at Seagate, we have a returns application that's end of life, very heavily transactional. We know that there is a customer-facing component to that. So Salesforce would provide a good vehicle, a good interface to the returns process. But we knew that there's a lot of transactional activity that's going to need to happen on the back end to process all that return data and integrate with our back end ERP systems, et cetera, et cetera. So we did an initial investigation into whether or not Salesforce is a suitable candidate for that type of application. And this was, I think, last year, about beginning of 2009. And so we talked with Salesforce Consulting. We talked with our sales engineers. And at that time, based on our requirements, they said, we don't think Salesforce is a good candidate for that type of application. But we're in a situation where, if you look at the future, and based on the history that we've seen with new innovation, being able to scale, support different types of heavier types of processing, we think that Salesforce is going to be able to support that in the future. So what do we do, right? So do we go off and build a new application to support that, or do we wait for Salesforce to deliver? So that's a challenge that we're starting to face as we start to look at a broader set of applications, and those applications may not be your traditional CRM or SFA type applications. So, so what I would suggest there is you need to have an honest conversation with Salesforce, and be pretty honest with what the capabilities are. But you need to factor in the future piece as well. Maybe it makes sense to wait for Salesforce to provide that feature, or maybe you test the limit. In a lot of cases, we've done that. We've made a decision. Well, we're going to use this platform for this application, and we're going to test the limits of the platform. And to a certain extent, we've taken that approach, and we've been successful thus far. But if you have a situation like that, one thing potentially that you can do is there could be an interim step. Maybe the business needs, maybe there's something you can deliver to the business that's maybe not the full-blown replacement of that application, but it's a step towards replacement. First of all, what you can do is you can get some adoption and some buy-in into the technology, and once the users see everything else that can go on with the platform and all the connectivity to other data sets that are already in the platform, they can see the value there. So you can kind of use that approach to kind of incrementally get towards replacement of that application. And being in a large enterprise, I don't know about you, we don't have agile development methodologies or anything. Replacing legacy type applications with in-house type applications are long drawn out things. So it could be very well that business, even though they need to replace it, may not be ready to replace it for another year or two. But having said that, in that same time span, based on prior history, Salesforce probably will be in a position to support that. So that's something that you should take in consideration when you make some decisions about what types of applications you move to the platform. So I want to talk a little bit about challenges. With any new system, there's always challenges. And I think with every solution, there's always new problems with that new solution. So cloud computing has its own set of issues, and Salesforce.com has its own set of issues that may be similar to other types of applications, but maybe also be different. So from a process standpoint, we support many different business functions within Seagate. Customer service, marketing, et cetera, and they all have a unique set of needs. And a lot of times, all those business functions play with they need to access the same account information. So data governance is a big challenge for us in terms of how do we manage data across different business functions and make sure that all that data plays well together. So so what we've done is we've established a data governance council. We have regular meetings with the business so that other business folks can understand what's going on from a data perspective, so that we ensure that changes that are happening for one business function is not adversely affecting another business function. Balancing speed and quality and usability is kind of intertwined. One of the things that we face from a usability perspective is, in general, to minimize our development costs, we would like to use the out-of-the-box UI, that to the form-based interface. In some cases, that UI is not as user-friendly or as optimal as a customized UI. So that's something to think about. We've had some cases where we've deployed an application using the default UI, and it wasn't as successful because it had extra clicks and so forth. And at the time, we didn't have the visual force capabilities to kind of create our own custom UI. So that's something we kind of struggle with. Do we do custom development, which obviously is going to be a longer development cycle, or do we force the users to kind of use the default interface? And so that's a challenge that we continually struggle with. From a platform, and some of these things are already being addressed with some of the new functionalities. A little bit old slide, but in general, we like to do as much as possible on the platform. We don't like doing processing outside the platform on Salesforce data. In the past, we've had to do that because in the past, Salesforce hasn't supported batch processing, which I know they do now. So that's a good thing. I don't think there's a week that goes by that we don't reach a governor limit of some kind. I know they're published somewhere, but we always seem to run into some type of governor limit. I think that there's pros and cons to governor limit. I think we understand why we have governor limits. If you have a shared multi-tenant platform, we need to make sure that one person is not bringing down the whole system. And then I think we recognize that, but we've had some challenges around that, especially when we scale to large volumes of transactions and data sets. We've had to kind of rethink the way that we approach certain types of problems. Release management, again, a little bit outdated based on some of the new announcements. There's still manual steps required to deploy. So that makes it difficult to deploy sometimes in terms of we can't do 100% transfer of data, but I think with the cloud deployment solution that is quickly being addressed. And then development. I mean, keeping up with the latest technology, even today with the chatter stuff, and there's so many new things being added to the platform. A lot of times we don't realize that they've been made available until after the fact. So keeping our development staff up to date with the latest technology is a continual challenge. So my philosophy and something I've been trying to evangelize within Seagate now that we've demonstrated some success, we have some applications that are delivering real business value, business critical type value. We're now in a position to start leveraging Salesforce.com more for a broader set of applications. Well, I'm still, I think, primarily focused on your kind of core CRM or customer related type processes, but now there's more interest in Salesforce as more of a collaborative platform. I think as we, and Chatter is actually kind of just one of those things. When I was talking with Eric Sue, who's a sales engineer, everything seems to kind of magically fit together. Like as we've gone down this path, we get business requirements. Hey, wouldn't it be like to have a Facebook for Salesforce? And then all of a sudden, that's delivered. So it's kind of a strange thing that's happened. So I think for us, there's a big interest in collaborative type applications, and we are going to probably look at that more closely. We also do, having said that, I mentioned before, we didn't really have a kind of a formalized application rationalization strategy. We're actually going to start that now. So we're going to look at our entire IT stack, and sales related and non-sales related, and look at that stack, and with the goal of consolidating our stack as much as possible. And I expect that Salesforce is going to have a big role to play in that effort. We're still going to be opportunistic. I mean, I think we're still going to focus on applications that are end of life or needs costly enhancements, and be versus to me, if it's already working, it's already serving some value to the business. There's not necessarily an immediate need to pull that out. In terms of advantages, I think these are kind of repeated quite often during the conference. Continual feature enhancements every quarter. There's nothing that we have to do to take advantage of those things. Not having it today, but having in the future. Kind of give you an example. We have a need to do end consumer CRM. So we do B2B CRM today primarily. But we want to be able to support end consumer CRM, which deals with a lot of end consumer data, retail data. We have a large retail business, millions and millions of product registrations, e-commerce orders, etc. and we need a consolidated database to store and manage that information. And if you talk with the industry experts in terms of what platforms or solutions are best suited to support end consumer, they're not going to suggest Salesforce.com. They don't view Salesforce as a B2C platform. So we're in a situation where do we go off and purchase another different B2C CRM solution, or do we go with what we have, knowing that we may not be able to do everything that we want to do right now, but there are some core things that we need, important things that we need to do now that Salesforce can support. So we made a decision to use Salesforce for our end consumer CRM. So that's kind of an example of how we've taken into account some of the way that features are introduced, and talking with the product managers, getting more insight into the roadmap, and that influences our decisions. Flexibility to integrate with other cloud solutions. Funny enough, our company is very interested in Google now, as I think many companies are. And to the extent we have, Salesforce is a cloud-based solution, and we've seen example of that integration with Google in today's session. That's a very realistic type scenario for Seagate. Taking advantage of something like Google and Salesforce in combination. So that's a tremendous advantage for us. The other thing, I think, term licensing model, I think the biggest advantage of term licensing model is it forces the business and IT to constantly revalidate the value that investment is making. Whereas traditionally, when you install, when you buy, a perpetual license type solution, you install it and you kind of keep it running. You might be paying maintenance, but you don't really understand what the value is. If you're forced to renew a contract every year or two, there's definitely going to be an exec that's going to ask you to justify that expense. And so I think that in itself helps provide motivation to IT who are supporting it and the business owners of those processes to ensure that those solutions are successful. In terms of cost savings or time savings, so we traditionally a Java-based house, and I hear 5 times. And in an enterprise environment, I'm not sure if that's necessarily the case, because I'm not sure I know many enterprise environments that use agile type development methodologies. So we tend to have more of your traditional requirements phase. So if you look at the broad spectrum of a project lifecycle, considering requirements, UAT testing, development, we have seen about 30 to 40% savings over similar type application development in an application like Java. So I think that was my last slide. Did you want to do a Q&A?
Yeah.
All right.
So just some of the key takeaways. As you think about expanding use with Force.com, you want to think about defining the sweet spot for you. Again, being able to quickly evaluate applications. Take advantage of all the application services, much like Seagate has. Look at developing a playbook for best practices within your organization. So looking at things like the integration you guys set up with single sign-on. I know some of the things that you guys did in terms of what you've done with your sales and marketing platform is going to be leverageable as you look to now expand into other areas with Force.com. And then clearly, as evidenced by Seagate, the more uses that they find, and again, as you talked about with the term licensing model and constantly justifying, you want to find as many uses as you can. The more things that you can take advantage of, the more return you're going to see. I want to end it right here and open it up to questions from the floor. But please move over to the mics if you can.
Hi, I had a question on so the 30 to 40% time savings you saw comparing to Java. Was that can you dive into a little more detail with that? Was that primarily because Force.com gives you that security framework and some of the frameworks, or is it more the ease of use of developing in Force.com versus Java?
I think primarily it's the framework. Seagate's a manufacturing company. We're not a software development house, so we don't generally have strong software development methodologies and practices. We're pretty much siloed. So having a framework like Force.com provides you that kind of base. You're starting at a higher level, right? Whereas Java, you're kind of starting at a more base level. So you're starting at a higher level. I think that's to me the biggest advantage you get through Force.com. Obviously, being able to define your data structures and define at least an introductory user interface for that to interact with that data, you're starting at a much higher level versus building that kind of same application in like a WebLogic type solution.
Hi. I'm wondering, this is not related directly to your applications, but more to the fact that you are a Java shop. Have any of your Java developers made the transition into doing Salesforce apps?
To answer that question, no. That's an interesting thing because most of the developers who have worked on Salesforce don't have Java development backgrounds, which is interesting. I think that'll change as more groups. One of the things I want to do in IT, today my group supports everything on Salesforce.com, but if you think about how this will grow in the future, there's going to be needs for other IT groups to be able to build. My team can't do everything, right? So those teams, those traditional Java developers will start using the platform. But to this point, it's actually funny, in Asia, where our offshore develop, we don't actually have a large pool of Java developers. So in some cases, we've been able to do sophisticated application development without that type of skill set, which I'll always recognize the value for. But I think the transition will occur.
You talked about the need to maintain the value and kind of defend the value of the app at license renewal time. But I was looking at your context diagram, and it looks like you've done quite a few customizations, and I don't know if you got into Apex development or some of the heavier duty stuff, but
yeah.
I mean, when I look at that, it doesn't seem like that migrating off is that easy a proposition for you.
Well, that's a good question. So I think if you're a lot of the first thing when you talk to IT people is first is security. How's the security with the platform? And then second one is, well, if we move all our data and all our applications and all our code to the cloud, how are we going to move off, right? Now, I think we need to move away from that, kind of get beyond that. To me, there's the train. There's two tracks, right? There was an old track where you had stuff installed internally, and you managed it in your data centers. And then there's this other track called cloud computing that's pretty much already left the station. And you need to. I think. And the other point to that is think about when you've done application migration from one platform to another in-house. It's never been easy. It's always been difficult.
Yeah, it's huge.
Right?
I mean, it's a big
right.
deal. Right?
And I think to a certain extent, moving from one cloud solution to another cloud solution is probably going to be a little bit easier to do, right? But having said that, I think we need to get beyond kind of thinking that something will go away, right? A lot of it has to do with trust. right? We've trusted Salesforce. We put a lot of investment. There's a lot of trust that we put in Salesforce, just like you know, a lot of trust you put into Oracle or whatever. You're going to be running your ERP on Oracle for 10 years. There's a lot of trust you put in that vendor. You don't switch ERP vendors every couple of years. So I think you need to take that approach and kind of get beyond the thinking that, well, how do we move or how do we switch? Because this is a little, you know, it's a different paradigm, and I think the train has left the station. I mean, 2 years ago when I started, I was you know, skeptical as any IT person, and today, you know, what I said when I started getting into Salesforce, I said in 5 years, people will no longer be talking about installing stuff in house, and it's 2 years, and we're almost at that point now. CIOs, our CIO is totally into cloud computing. This is direction, moving stuff to Google, et cetera. There's concerns. There's security concerns. There's always the concern of what happens if Google goes away, or what happens if Salesforce goes away. But I don't see those being any different than if an internal hosted system went away. I mean, you may be able to support it and keep the lights on, but you won't be able to take full advantage of that investment. So.
Well, so just a quick follow-up. So did you have any kind of strategy that said, boy, I'm getting into this service marketplace, and one of the great attractions, I've heard this today in the conference, one of the great attractions is I can change. If I don't like it, if they don't perform, I can go to, you know, xforce.com or somebody else. Did you have a strategy that said, boy, I'm going to position myself to be able to do that? Or did you say, no, I'm going to make this system do what I need it to do?
I think if you're too focused on how you're going to get out, then you're not going to take full advantage of that platform, right? I mean, because what that do, you know, then you're only going to limit yourself to a certain set of functionality. So I have a different, you know, kind of view of that.
If I could just add to that too, I mean, we do have the metadata API, which allows you to export all your data definitions, all your, you know, obviously your workflow configurations, everything that you configure within the app, whether it's the configuration or the code, is available via export in an XML form. Now, again, you can't just take that XML and put it into another cloud and hope it runs, right? But at least you get some level of, you know, here's the logic that I had, and clearly, like to Aaron's point, that's no different than if you were going from, let's say, Nodes to Java to .NET. You know, there's always going to be a remediation process.
I guess the difference is maybe the 30 or 40% discount that Aaron talked about. You still not have that, right? If you stay in the cloud, the migration to the new system should be easier than migrating to something on-premise.
Right. Well, actually, you know, going from one cloud, we went from a cloud solution right now for customer service to Salesforce. So we did that transition within like a 3-month time period. So we've done it. Yeah.
Yeah, my question is, I guess, more related to governance. It kind of piggybacks on some of these questions. I'm the EA at my company, and there's a very strong perception. Well, governance is very important, and there's kind of a strong perception in IT that with the cloud platform, we lose a lot of visibility and governance in terms of some of the data issues that you were talking about, our code reviews being done, defect tracking, resolution with the actual code bases themselves, release management, especially in general.
Right.
And those are big concerns. We've had some problems actually with, you know, business analysts, you know, doing some things. We'll have to come back and get into it now.
Yeah, actually, one of the things that a lot of people, and then I think Salesforce was kind of positioning a couple of years ago as just being this platform that, you know, a business user can use and deploy and build their own applications. And I don't think that's the right model, right? Especially with an enterprise, large enterprise organizations. One of my main priorities when I took over is apply IT discipline to the process. So we do code reviews, we do UAT testing, we do requirements docs. None of that goes away. I think there was a perception from the business when we were first kind of interacting with them is that all this stuff kind of goes out the door. We don't have to do that anymore, and that's not the case. Because in a lot of cases, you have to be more disciplined because you're all on the same platform, right? When you're using different platforms, you can kind of segment and you can kind of limit your vulnerabilities. But when you have a shared system, you actually have to impose that governance to ensure that everything. But having said that, if you're just starting out, I wouldn't get too bogged down with governance per se, because I think that can inhibit some immediate value that you get from the platform. But as you've grown, as naturally as things get bigger and bigger, you need to put more governance in place to ensure that that system is stable and so forth. Because we're running some core business process on the platform, and we can't afford to go outside of IT. We have blackout periods and all that kind of stuff. And we've actually been, there's been cases where we haven't, we generally have like an IT blackout period at the end of the quarter. No changes to IT systems. And we did make a change because we weren't part of the data center, right? And we had an issue with something that we deployed. So now we adhere to the same policies that we do for our internal data center.
Yeah, and just to add to that, many of the customers that I work with, some of the larger, more sophisticated customers, have a very sophisticated release management process. We do have multiple sandbox environments that we support. We have different tools that you can do to migrate things from environment to environment. So you can put as much rigor around it, around the release processes as you really need to, as you desire.
You mentioned CRM from consumer. Will Seagate need to purchase a license for each end user in that case?
Well, we support consumers in a couple of different ways. So today we support consumers through our customer portal for case management. So we can customers can submit cases through customer portal. We do have we get. I guess you have to talk with your sales rep, but I'll just be very honest here with the sales license. And this is something we struggle with. We're a big company, 45,000 employees, and when you talk about customer portal, what if we want to expose customer portal to all of our end consumers, which may be millions of users? That multiply a million even by a nickel is a whole lot of money, right? So I think you need to work with your sales rep to get better pricing for that. So we support end consumers that way through customer portal, but we also support end consumer in terms of supporting marketing campaigns more from a database and data store perspective and an e-marketing perspective, which is just a record in the database versus an actual customer interacting with the system.
Hey there. First of all, I'd like to say to both of you, I've been to a lot of sessions like everybody in here, and I appreciate more real-world data and an honest conversation versus an hour of infomercial, which I've seen too much of. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
But my question, and I had this conversation with my salesperson a little earlier today. Salesforce marketing is excellent. I don't know of a better Salesforce does a great job of marketing, almost too good of a job. So I'm running into issues with my business users, executives, that are saying, look, I hear Salesforce is no software. I hear Salesforce is 1/5 the cost. At an enterprise level, we're still spending a lot of money to make a project happen.
Right.
And they're going, why in the world am I spending all this money? I hear it should be basically free.
Right.
So I'm just asking, do you run into any of those kinds of issues?
One of the biggest fears, especially coming to these conferences, like after what the business is going to ask us, you want to do this chat, or can we get that set up, next week or something? It's like, I was almost afraid to show it to too many people, because then when they come to running to us for new things. So it is a challenge. I think ultimately it depends on the type of application. If it's kind of a standalone type of application that's kind of new and doesn't integrate with anything, then yeah, you can whip that thing out and real quick. But if it's it's going to integrate with the back end ERP or something like that, those things are going to take time. And that's something that I have had to educate the business, is that just because something's out in the cloud doesn't necessarily mean you forego all the good and traditional things that you do for a project, right? Requirements, sign off, all that kind of stuff. You don't forego that stuff, and that stuff generally takes time. So it is. I would like it to be like the marketing folks say it, right? But when you talk about large corporations, there's different people involved. That those systems that we integrate with are not as open, as flexible. One of the biggest challenges for most of the products that we deal with, the biggest headaches are when we try to integrate with an internal system, right? If it's all Salesforce, if it's all self-contained, we can deliver things really quickly. But if anytime we have to integrate with an internal system, it's hard because those systems are not open and not easy to integrate. Right. You can install an Oracle e-business suite and just on your laptop, right? No problem. But when you need to integrate it with everything else, it's going to take time and effort to do that. So, you're welcome.